Breaking generational barriers. Why older generations struggle to understand mental health. Mental health has become one of the most discussed topics in recent years, but despite the growing awareness, understanding, and acceptance, there remains a noticeable generational divide. Many younger people find themselves frustrated or even hurt when opening up to older family members about depression, anxiety, or other mental health struggles, only to be met with dismissiveness. This response isn't always rooted in a lack of love or concern. Often, it is because those who are in their 60s and older grew up in a time when mental health wasn't widely acknowledged as real. To them, the concept of openly discussing emotions or seeking professional help for psychological struggles seems foreign, unnecessary, or even weak. The man-up mentality. For much of the 20th century, people were taught to man up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or tough it out. Vulnerability was seen as weakness, and admitting to emotional pain was often discouraged. This was especially true for men, who were expected to embody strength and stoicism. But women also faced cultural pressures to remain composed, silent, and self-sacrificing. In that era, mental health conversations were often taboo. Depression was dismissed as laziness. Anxiety was brushed aside as nervousness. Post-traumatic stress was ignored entirely, especially among veterans returning from war. Therapy was stigmatized, and medication for psychological conditions was often misunderstood or ridiculed. As a result, many in the older generations internalized the idea that emotions should be hidden, struggles should be endured silently, and asking for help was something to be ashamed of. Why older generations struggle to validate mental health. When a younger family member today says, "I'm struggling with depression," or "I deal with anxiety," the older relative might respond with skepticism, saying things like, "You just need to toughen up. Back in my day, we didn't have time to be depressed. You're just overthinking it." To the younger person, this feels invalidating and painful. But from the perspective of someone in their 60s, they may genuinely believe they are offering sound advice. After all, they survived their struggles by suppressing feelings and moving forward, and they may not understand why younger generations can't do the same. This doesn't excuse the lack of empathy, but it does explain where it comes from. It's not always malice. It's often a lack of education, exposure, and generational conditioning. The fear of being treated differently. Another reality is that many people, regardless of age, don't open up to their families about mental health struggles at all. Why? Because they fear being treated differently afterward. Once you share that you're depressed, anxious, or facing another mental health challenge, some relatives start walking on eggshells around you. Others may minimize or dismiss everything you say, thinking, "Oh, they're just saying that because they're depressed." In some families, being honest about mental health comes with the risk of never being taken seriously again. This fear of being labeled or misunderstood keeps countless people silent. Instead of finding comfort in family, they carry their struggles privately, afraid of judgment or alienation. It's a tragic irony. Mental health is already isolating, and fear of rejection can make that isolation even worse. The cost of silence. The just get over it mindset, coupled with the fear of being treated differently, has consequences. Studies show that older generations suffer from high rates of untreated mental health conditions themselves. Many elders battle loneliness, grief, and depression in silence, partly because they don't too want to be seen as weak, or because they were never taught that seeking help is acceptable. The cycle is reinforced when family members, old or young, minimize or stigmatize mental health. It makes people less likely to speak up, less likely to seek help, and more likely to suffer in silence. Bridging the gap. So how do we navigate these divides when it comes to mental health? The solution isn't easy, but it begins with patience, empathy, and education. Start with compassion. Understand that your older relatives aren't intentionally trying to hurt you. They may simply be repeating the lessons they were taught. By seeing their perspective, you can approach the conversation less defensively. Educate gently. Share information in small doses. Sometimes sending an article, showing a video, or referencing a news story about mental health can make the subject feel more approachable and less personal. Use stories instead of throwing statistics at them. Share personal stories, either your own or ones that come across that illustrate the reality of mental health struggles. Stories are powerful and often resonate more deeply than facts. Set boundaries. If your relatives consistently invalidate your feelings, remember it's okay to protect yourself. You can love them while also deciding that they may not be the right people to confide in about your struggles. Find allies. Sometimes members of the older generation are more open-minded than others. Find those relatives who are willing to listen and build from there. Their support can help bridge the gap with others. A shift is happening. Despite these challenges, it's worth noting that change is occurring. Mental health awareness is at an all-time high, and even some older adults are beginning to recognize its importance. Many grandparents and parents are learning from their children and grandchildren that it's okay to talk about feelings, seek therapy, and admit when life feels overwhelming. This generational shift may take time, but every conversation, every effort to educate, and every act of vulnerability moves the needle forward. Why it matters. Understanding the divide isn't just about easing frustration, it's about saving lives. Mental health conditions are real medical issues, just like diabetes or heart disease, and ignoring them can have devastating consequences. By challenging stigma across generations, we create an environment where people of all ages feel safe asking for help. It also allows us to heal family patterns. Instead of passing down the belief that silence is strength, we can model something healthier for the next generation. That true strength is found in honesty, connection, and compassion. Conclusion. For those in their 60s and older, dismissing mental health struggles isn't necessarily a sign of coldness. It's often a reflection of the cultural norms they grew up with. They were taught to hide pain, not to confront it. But times are changing, and conversations about depression, anxiety, and mental health are becoming more normalized and necessary than ever. At the same time, we must recognize how hard it can be for anyone young or old to share their struggles, fearing that they'll be treated differently or dismissed altogether. Breaking that cycle takes courage, patience, and persistence. As younger generations, it's frustrating when we don't get the support we need from our elders, but we also have the opportunity to lead by example. By continuing to speak openly, seek help, and break down stigma, we not only help ourselves, but also pave the way for future generations to live healthier, more authentic lives. The truth is this: mental health is real, it matters, and it deserves to be treated with the same seriousness and compassion as physical health. And while it may take time for everyone, especially older generations, to fully embrace this reality, the effort to bridge that gap is worth it. Because at the end of the day, every person, no matter their age, deserves to feel heard, understood, and supported. For comments about this article, or to have input for the next article, please email Andrew at andrewbird.net and reference article 083025.